In this lesson, I'm going to talk about the importance of burning, and we're going to actually bring into the workflow here a different software package called Adobe Encore. As I say that, you'll notice my screen is starting with Premiere. About 5 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago anyway, you probably, from time to time, anytime you wanted to watch a movie, would throw in a DVD. And most houses still have those DVD players. And then you had the advent of which happened to be a standard definition DVD. And then all of a sudden, these couple of machines came out. One was called a Blu-ray, and the other was called an HD DVD. Understand the only difference between those with a standard definition and a Blu-ray or an HD DVD is the amount of pixels in the picture. So you had higher quality movies coming out. Big war existed between HD, DVD, and Blu-ray, and pretty much the studio companies said that they had to make a decision, and they pretty much went with Blu-ray. So HD, DVD, you don't even see anymore. The reason I bring that up is in another 5 to 10 years, you're going to see an incredible change in what happens with digital media and movies. I think you're already starting to see it with the internet being available to deliver these movies now through things like maybe an internet-ready TV or an Apple TV. I have a feeling you're gonna start to see the movie industry change rapidly, similar to what the music industry, what happened to the music industry. If you think about it, when's the last time you bought a CD or an album, even for that matter, of songs? Typically, the distribution method now these days is you go to iTunes or some other digital place where you can get a digital copy of music, and you don't ever see there's no physical CD that you buy anymore. I think movies are going to go in that direction, although it's going to take a little bit of time before that happens. So I decided I'd give you a section on how to burn a DVD. Although, for this course, quite honestly, everything we've turned into some form of a streaming video on a cloud source like YouTube or Vimeo or something like that. But I figured it'd be a good extension of what we're talking about in terms of how do we burn a DVD and the differences between the modes of DVD burning. All right, so hopefully get your questions set out. We are going to start with Premiere because I want to kind of show you how both Premiere and Encore work together hand in hand in order to create a DVD. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up a project here in Premiere. And again, as what we've always done is we go back to the lesson folder. This is in chapter 21. So I'm in my Premiere lessons, lesson 21. And there's only one project folder or project file there. It's 21.1. I'm going to click through the Mercury engine. This is going to ask me where is Medieval Hero, and it's right here. I just say select. Premiere is going to go through and find all of its other assets based upon that connection that I just made. And here you go. Here's 21.1. And as I've done in the past, I'll just go ahead and play this just so you can kind of catch the gist of what we're talking about. I'll turn the audio down a little bit here. Down just a little bit so I don't blow your ears out here. Let me play that again.
You have been judged guilty.
Here's our
of
hero.
Turning your heels on
again.
the face of the old gods. Your sorcery ends here. Ends tonight.
Ooh, look at that special effect.
When you were a child,
okay,
you sat.
If you notice, real quickly up here in the timeline, there's a couple of these toggles. These are called markers, which isn't a big deal. But above this marker, you'll see a CD-looking icon at the top. And this is a reference to the program that I was talking about called Encore. In order to make a DVD, the most powerful probably use of a DVD when you burn it on a disc is when you throw it in the player, the chapter markers allow you to get to sections in the movie without having to fast forward or rewind, which is kind of that adjustment between digital and tape. When you would put in your old VHS, the only way you could get to a part in the movie further along in the movie is you had to fast forward the tape. Now, with the way movies are digitally encoded, you can jump around the movie no matter where you are, and it goes immediately right to that data. So here's the reason I pulled Premiere up first. We have our timeline within Premiere. You have to, if you're thinking down the road that you're going to need some chapter markers in your movie, you're going to have to put these into Premiere. And if you notice, there's one already placed in here, and it's that little CD piece. There's actually two placed in there. You might not see the other one, but I'm going to double click on this one. And it basically tells you that the name of the marker has been called Lightning. When we do our menu-based DVD, this will mean something to you. And it's at the, roughly it's at the 14-second 1 frame mark. So that's already been placed in there for you. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to place another one just in case. I'm going to scrub over to where the villain, right about there. Let me hit the, you can use your page up and page down buttons to actually get to the exact edit spot that you want. Oh, one too many. There we go. Right where I want it. So I'm going to set up another chapter marker right here. I slide over to the left of the top of the timeline. You'll notice there's a couple of buttons. We've talked about the snap before, so you should know what that is. If you slide over after the snap, you'll see the little CD icon that I was talking about before, which says Set Encore Chapter. I go ahead and click on that. It's going to place a marker where the CTI was. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but you've got to make sure that you can also name this thing too as well. So I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to call this one Villain. And you'll notice it gives you the timestamps and all of that stuff. Don't worry so much about everything else. It gets a little detailed there real quick, but I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So we've named that one Villain. Let me move my CTI, and you'll see now there's two CD icons. If you look way over to the beginning, you'll also see one at the very beginning. Premiere, by default, automatically puts in a time marker right at the very beginning. And again, that's to help Encore figure out where to start the movie. So when you throw the DVD into a player, it's going to start at the beginning of the movie. Kind of makes sense when you look at it. One of the key features of Premiere is its ability to interact. We've already seen how it interacts with Photoshop pretty easily, where you can create layers in Photoshop and use those layers in Premiere. The next step is to take Premiere as an intermediate step and then go to Encore and burn the DVD. There are two ways that you can really get this project over to Encore. One of them is to make a video, to go ahead and render this whole video and create a video from it that you would then import into Encore. It takes a little bit of time. As you know, every time we've tried to render anything, you'll notice the computer kind of sits and actually has to do some work. So that takes a good chunk of time. The other way we can push this over to Adobe is to use this Adobe Dynamic Link, which is found under the File menu. You'll see some After Effects pieces in there too as well. That'll be for the more advanced folks. After Effects is a great program that allows you to do some moving graphics and stuff. But we're going to actually send this to Encore, which is the top of the menu. So go ahead and I click on Send to Encore and give it a few seconds. And it'll push it over to Encore. Similar to Premiere, Encore works with projects. So it's asking you, computer's asking you, what do you want to name this Encore project? So I'm going to call this Heroes. Two options here for authoring mode. This is just in the project settings. There are actually 3 output options that you can use, 3 formats that Encore burns in. The 2 of them you see here are Blu-ray and DVD. And then there's a third that it'll also allow you to export out to Flash, which is your answer to number 1. So DVDs, Blu-rays, and Flash are the 3 formats that Encore will burn in. We're going to choose DVD for this particular case. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And this will take a few seconds. And once you've imported that project, you're going to notice there are 2 pieces that have come in. There is a timeline, and then there is a Premiere. Let me move this. I want to make this just a little bit bigger so you can see. There is the timeline, and then there's the sequence that you exported from Premiere. You'll notice down below the timeline looks very similar. You've got your CD markers have been replaced by these chapter markers. That's a 1, there's a 2, and a 3. And this is going to play very similar to the way Premiere plays. I can move through the timeline.
You have been judged guilty of turning your heels on the face of the old...
All right, so there are a few differences. Obviously, the effects aren't here, and the transitions and the titles. All of those are created in Premiere. So understand that Premiere is the editing piece, Encore is just the burn piece, but you do have this timeline idea in Encore as well. The power, most of the power in Encore is done with these two panels right here, your properties panel and your library panel. So we'll talk about those a little bit later. The piece I do want to get across to you, though, is this dynamic link idea. Why is it so important? So I've already pushed the video here into Encore. Let's say I'm looking through this and I say, wow, I'd really like an effect on this video. If you notice, I didn't shut down Premiere. So watch what happens. I'm going to go to Premiere, and I'm going to go to my effects rack, and let's just say I changed something in the Premiere timeline. Let me throw on a let's change something to black and white. So I go to Image Control, and I have this black and white effect, and I'm going to drag that over the first clip. You'll notice I see it in the program window that it's now black and white. Let me move my CTI back, and let me hit.
You have been judged guilty of turning your heels.
All right, so I just changed that clip from a color to a black and white clip. Let's automatically now, notice my screen as I flip back over to Encore. You'll see it work for a quick second. There it goes. And the timeline for Encore automatically updates. So there's the importance of that direct link idea, where now I can actually take this same movie, make changes in Premiere. When I go back to Encore, the timeline automatically updates. So that's a pretty cool feature, and it's a great example of how these Adobe programs work with each other. All right, two types of DVDs we can make. Don't get this confused with the formats. Again, the formats are the final, whatever the final version is going to be. There's two concepts I want to talk to you about in terms of creating a DVD specifically. One concept is the autoplay DVD, and the other concept is the menu-based DVD. I'm going to real briefly show you how to get through an autoplay DVD first, and then the second video will cover the menus and how to create a menu-based DVD. The difference is it's pretty self-explanatory. An autoplay DVD will play the minute you put it in a DVD player. It just automatically starts the movie. A menu-based DVD, when you put which is the way most DVDs are created these days, you put the DVD in a player, a menu will appear that's looking for the user to interact with that menu before it moves on. That's where you'll find your chapter markers. You might find special pieces about the movie, behind the scenes stuff. If you've watched a DVD movie in the last year or two, you've noticed that menu piece come up first. We're going to go ahead and create an autoplay DVD here for you, although we're not actually going to burn it in the end, but we'll set it up so it would be ready to burn. Before I get to that autoplay piece, keep in mind too, let's say you wanted some other sequences from other pieces in here. This has a timeline and a sequence, but by no means can that be the only things in the project panel. You can have other timelines in here as well. You can have 15, 20 different Premiere Pro sequences. All depends on what you want to do. So I could go ahead and import more sequences in here if I want, but this will be good for now. All right, so we've got the dynamic link going. We turned on the black and white and noticed that it had updated. We're going to go ahead and create an autoplay DVD. We've got some features over here in the properties panel that we want to look at. Anytime you are creating a DVD, there are some things that you have to decide before you go ahead and build the DVD. Otherwise, then on Encore, we'll go through a testing process, and if all the things aren't in order, or if you haven't filled out most of these things in the properties panel, it's going to say it can't build the DVD. So I'm going to go ahead and fix some of these things that I know are probably going to break if I try to build this at this moment in time. So let's look over here in the properties. Notice I have nothing highlighted. And what you're going to see is anytime I select anything, let's say I select the timeline, the properties panel will change to timeline, and all of these pieces work with respect to the actual timeline. If I go to the sequence, it changes over to asset, and again, these change. If I click in the gray of the project panel, this is the whole entire project idea. So let's cover a couple of these things. First, go ahead and select in the gray of the project window. Make sure you're not on any timeline. And it's asking you, what do you want to name the project? So we're going to name this project Heroes, which will actually show up on the disk once you're done burning. You've got this first play idea. So according to this, currently, it's actually going to play the timeline, which is what I want. Override, don't worry about. The title button is, that is something we're going to have to fix, because sometimes remote controls that come with DVD players have a title button. and that's set to go ahead and play the menu or, top menu, those kinds of things. But since this is not going to be a menu, a menu-based DVD, I'm going to actually have to set this to play the movie. And here's how you do it. You can go ahead in here and you'll see there's a drop-down menu, but there's also this idea of there's a button right next to where it says not set. This is called the Pick-Wick tool. And what the Pick-Wick tool allows you to do is it allows you to combine an action within the properties panel with an asset in the project. So here's the idea. When the DVD is done, selects the title button on their remote, I want the movie to start playing. So I'm going to grab the Pick-Wick tool, and you'll notice a line will appear. And I'm going to go drag that over to the timeline. I let go, and you'll notice that the timeline fills into the title button. So that's the Pick-Wick tool that allows you to connect some form of action with an asset in the project panel. Looks like I'm good to go here. There's nothing in here. The other thing I want to change is the timeline. I want to change the end action. We have to tell the DVD what's going to happen once the movie is done. So I go over here to end action. It says not set. And for this particular case, I'm just going to say I want you to stop the movie. Once the movie is done, just stop the movie and be done with it. We're going to mess around with the end action a little bit more when we talk about the menus a little bit down the road. But for now, we'll just go ahead and we'll say stop. I've changed the pieces that I need to change to make sure I don't run an error. I'm ready to go for the autoplay with no menus. So I hit the build button, and you'll see the formats. Here's where I was talking about the 3 formats that Adobe exports out to. Here's your DVD, your Blu-ray, and your Flash. So I'm going to go ahead, DVD. This is an autoplay disc because, quite honestly, there's no menus in here whatsoever. Go to the menus, there's nothing in here. There's only our one timeline. And I would, at this point, I would go ahead and I would make sure the recorder says the right recorder, which for me, this is the right one. Let me expand this a little bit bigger so you can see the whole window. Write speeds, so on and so forth. It's always set up to 3 times, which is based upon my hardware. But I would go ahead and put a blank DVD into my burner, which you all have on your computers as well. And I would go ahead and burn a copy. You could do a number of copies. I'm going to go ahead and click Check Project here real quick. This is where the errors would show up had I not set up these properties correctly in the Properties panel. All of these pieces were checked. Everything looks good. I'd go ahead and click Start. It would start building the DVD. Or if I don't want to check the project, that's not a big deal. If I click Build, it's going to automatically check the project anyway. But I would go ahead and click Build, and it would burn the DVD. Good for autoplay. We'll come back and we'll talk about a menu-based.